What if getting the one thing you've always wanted, what if it actually made you more miserable than ever? Today on The Explainer, we're diving into the strange psychology of a priest's nose. It's a story that really gets you thinking about our flaws, our identity, and maybe, most importantly, how we think other people see us.
All right, so let's meet our main character. His name is Zenchi Nagu, and he's this respected priest, over 50, a man of some status. But none of that really matters, because he's known for just one thing. He's completely defined, you could even say haunted by his nose. And we're not talking a slightly large nose here. We're talking 5 to 6 inches long, literally dangling from his upper lip all the way down past his chin. And this wasn't just some physical inconvenience. No, this was a deep, deep psychological wound, something he'd been carrying around for decades, ever since he was just a young novice. Now, on the outside, he played it cool. He had to, right? He's a priest. He's supposed to be above all that, focused on spiritual things. But on the inside, he was absolutely tormented.
I mean, think about the practical side of this. It literally got in the way of eating. There was this infamous story that even spread to the capital about his disciple having to hold his nose up with a plank and one time dropping it right into his porridge. Super embarrassing for sure. But as bad as that was, the real problem, the real damage, was happening inside his head. It was just this constant, daily hit to his pride.
So naturally, this thing became an all-consuming obsession. He just started searching for any way to deal with it, any solution, any comfort at all. And the things he tried, well, they really show you just how desperate he was getting.
In private, he'd stand in front of the mirror for hours. He'd try all these different poses, holding his chin, resting his cheek on his hand, just looking for any angle that made his nose look even a tiny bit shorter. But it never worked. In fact, every single attempt just seemed to make it look even longer. And he'd just end up sighing, defeated, and go back to his scriptures.
Okay, so his next strategy was a little more psychological. It's like, if I can't fix it, maybe I can just normalize it. He got this idea that if he could just find someone else, anyone else, with a nose like his, he wouldn't feel so alone. So he started searching, desperately looking for a kindred spirit.
But nothing. He found plenty of people with hooked noses, but never one quite like his. And this search just made him feel more and more alone. He got so desperate he started combing through old religious texts, looking for comfort there. He actually found a story about a guy with super long ears, and he found himself just wishing so hard that the story had been about a long nose instead. Anything to feel that connection,
And this is where you really see the desperation. He was willing to try anything. I mean, anything. We're talking about drinking boiled snake gourds, applying mouse urine directly to his nose. I mean, come on. No folk remedy was too weird. And after all that, his nose was still just as long as ever, stubbornly, humiliatingly long.
So just when it seems like all hope is lost, one of his disciples comes back from a trip to Kyoto, and he's got news. He's learned this bizarre new method from a Chinese doctor. And Nagu, he tries to act all cool and indifferent about it, but inside, he is absolutely desperate to give it a shot.
But this cure? Wow, it was almost as humiliating as the nose itself. It's this whole absurd process. His nose gets boiled in scalding water, then an assistant literally stomps on it. Then they pluck grease out of it with tweezers before boiling it again. And he just has to lie there through the whole thing, feeling less like a person and more like, an object? After all that, he nervously takes a look in the mirror, and for the first time in, forever, he actually likes what he sees. The thing that caused him a lifetime of shame is just gone. In its place is a totally normal short nose. His problem is finally solved. Or so it seemed. Because in the days after the procedure, Nagu noticed something really weird, something deeply unsettling. The way people treated him had changed. That sort of silent pity he was used to, it was gone. And what replaced it was a whole lot worse.
See, before, people felt sorry for him. His long nose was this thing he couldn't help, this burden he had to carry. But now, with the short nose, they didn't see a guy who was finally free from his suffering. No, they saw a guy who was so vain he went through this ridiculous procedure to change himself. And they thought it was absolutely hilarious. The laughter wasn't hidden anymore. It was right there, out in the open.
And this, right here, is the key insight of the whole story.
It's about a weird contradiction in the human heart. We feel sympathy for someone's misfortune, sure, but when they actually escape it, there's this little part of us that feels dissatisfied. The people around him had lost their object of pity, the thing that maybe made them feel a little better about their own lives, and on some subconscious level, they resented him for taking that away. So they punished him for it.
So here's the crazy irony, right? He got the one thing he wanted his entire life, and it made him more miserable than he'd ever been. He got all bitter and angry, he started snapping at everybody, he even got mad at the disciple who brought him the cure in the first place.
Then one night, he's lying awake, can't sleep. It's windy outside, and he feels something familiar. His nose starts to itch. He reaches up to touch it, and it feels kind of swollen and warm.
The next morning, he wakes up and steps out onto his porch. The air is crisp, leaves are everywhere. He takes a deep breath, and suddenly this feeling rushes back to him, a feeling he didn't even realize he'd been missing. And with his heart pounding, he nervously reaches up to his face, half scared of what he's about to feel.
And what he feels, it isn't the short nose from yesterday, it's the old one. The long nose, it's back, dangling 5 or 6 inches all the way below his chin again. It had grown back completely, almost like it happened overnight.
But here's the thing. Instead of feeling despair, he felt this incredible, cheerful wave of relief. The exact same feeling he had when it first got short. That weight of being ridiculed for his vanity was just gone. He wasn't that silly guy who tried to change himself anymore. He was back to just being the man with the unfortunate nose, and there was this amazing comfort in that.
He whispered to himself, "Now, surely no one will laugh at me." It was like his old identity had been restored. He actually welcomed his old flaw back, like a friend he hadn't seen in years. Because that flaw, that misery, it defined him in a way that people could pity, but not make fun of.
So Naigu's story leaves us with this big question, right? Which are we more afraid of? Our actual flaws or losing the identity that those flaws give us? It's just a fascinating look at how much our identity is wrapped up, not just in how we see ourselves, but in how we believe everyone else sees us. Thanks for joining this explainer.